It is an honor to be alive on this day, the 29th day of the month of September 2022, just one day away to the close of this month, which has been quite an eventful one. And also on this very day, President William Samoei Arap Ruto got to give his first address to the 13th Parliament, kicking off its operations. Also on this day, the 29th day of September, we commemorate the World Heart Day, a day in which we remember the importance of the myogenic muscle beating behind our chests and all the challenges in matters of health that attack it, and also considerations on how to be able to deal with such problems. And also, speaking of matters of the heart, thank you for keeping KUTV at heart and choosing us to be your informer tonight. And in the purpose of giving you a new experience, here are the highlights of tonight's top stories. The 13th Parliament is set to begin its legislative agenda, being officially opened by President William Ruto. Nairobi members of County Assembly are sworn in with Ken Ngondi elected as the County Assembly Speaker. Nyandarua County to run head count to purge ghost workers ravaging county funds. And in sports, Athletics Kenya announces postponement of the World Mountain and Trail Running Championships trials. A warm welcome to the broadcast that is also streaming live on YouTube at KUTV Kenya and Facebook on KUTV Kenya. My name is EMMANUEL KUTOSI, and the sign language interpretation will be joined by Samuel Okello. The KUTV Thursday primetime news begins now. The President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Samoei Arap Ruto, officially presided over the official opening of the bicameral Parliament. This follows the swearing-in of members of Parliament on the 8th of September and the election of speakers, therefore kick-starting the business of both the lower and upper houses.
In accordance with Article 132(1)(a) of the Constitution of Kenya, which requires the President to address the opening of each newly elected Parliament, the head of state, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, presided over the opening of the 13th bicameral Parliament, comprising of the Senate and the National Assembly. The Defense Forces mounted a guard of honor for the President, which certainly became his first to inspect since assuming office. The President, accompanied by the members of Parliament and the Cabinet Secretary appointees, then proceeded to the chambers for the official address. The sitting was officially opened by the Speakers Amason Kingir of the Senate and Moses Wetangula of the National Assembly.
Honorable Members of Parliament, Article 132(1) of the Constitution of Kenya requires the President to address the opening of each newly elected Parliament. By a letter reference number OP/CAB.26/417/Volume 1, 38, dated 21st of September 2022, His Excellency the President notified the Speakers of Parliament of his intention to address the newly elected Parliament.
As he oversaw the opening of the houses, the top of his priorities was to explicitly state the priorities of the first 100 days of his administration in office, which would largely inform the Parliament's legislative agenda. In his manifesto, the President had ambitious plans for the electorates, of which he had to explain the viability as entitled in his bottom-up economic transformation agenda.
I want to persuade you that the legislative agenda I stand here to prosecute deserves the bipartisan support of this House. My administration is pursuing a transformational program that offers a uniquely all-Kenyan moment, which calls for unity of purpose, in the legislature. We are committed to serving all Kenyans in all wards of each constituency and all counties in every region throughout the Republic of Kenya.
The official opening of the parliament by the head of state now states open a ground for the lawmakers to start discharging their constitutional duties. The speakers then adjourned the sitting and announced the resumption of the House to be on Tuesday, 4th of October. Omondi Otieno, KUTV.
Now, as required by Article 132, Section 1A of the Constitution, President William Ruto made his address, which will herald the commencement of the legislative processes of the 13th Parliament. In his first speech in his newly found capacity before members, Ruto declared his legislative agenda, saying he will lead an administration that will transform the country.
As required by Article 132, Section 1A of the Constitution, the President is required to speak at the opening of each newly elected Parliament. Hence, to make clear of his administration, President William Ruto aired his agenda to the newly opened 13th Parliament, which is influenced by the Parliament's legislative decisions.
We will also work with the Kenya Revenue Authority on a culture change to make it a people-friendly, customer-centric organization. I am of the view that we should rename it the Kenya Revenue Service in line with the proposed transformation.
To make it more customer-friendly, Dr. William Ruto proposed the renaming of the Kenya Revenue Authority to Kenya Revenue Service. The proposal to change the name of KRA was first presented by outgoing Treasury CS Korea Tani. The proposal was made during the presentation of 22/2023 budget last under President Uhuru Kenyatta's tenure.
Productive conversations with operators of the Fuliza and M-Shwari platforms on the modalities of reducing their lending rates. I am happy to report today that yesterday our engagement finally culminated in undertaking by the platform operators to reduce the cost of credit by 50%, and this is a significant step towards unlocking billions of shillings needed to spur economic activity by once again expanding financial inclusion.
The President didn't hesitate to spelling out a raft of measures to lower the cost of borrowing, which will benefit the hustler nation and small businesses. This comes after Safaricom announced a 50% reduction in interest rates charged on the Fuliza overdraft loan yesterday.
One significant intervention is the resolve to abandon consumption subsidies in favor of supporting and investing in production. This is why we have made available fertilizer to our farmers at cheaper rates of 3,500 per 50 kilogram bag, down from 6,500. We are exploring further mechanisms to bring these prices down.
Scrapping the cost of subsidies is a vital measure taken by the government in order to boost production. This is aiding farmers as now a 50 kg bag of fertilizer goes at Kenya shillings 3,500, a drop from initial Kenya shillings 6,500. After his speech, the Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, and his Senate counterpart, Amason Kingi, broke off their respective houses until Tuesday, October 4th at 2:30 p.m. for the next sitting. Jeff Mwangi, KUTV.
And still within the confines of the National Assembly and the Senate, President William Ruto has proposed a national savings drive to relieve Kenya's spending and borrowing pressures. In his address to a joint parliamentary sitting today in Parliament, President Ruto proposed the national savings drive, whereby for every 2 shillings saved, the government will contribute a shilling for the 2 shillings saved. The president said the proposed initiative on saving is pegged on reducing the government's borrowing needs and for Kenya to grow an upper income country.
Over the next 3 years, we must reverse this and go back to the situation where government contributes to the national saving efforts by keeping recurrent expenditure below revenue. To this end, I have instructed Treasury to work with ministries to find at least 300 billion shillings in this year's budget so that we can remove it, because the market cannot sustain the kind of borrowing we are doing as government.
And indeed, a lot was happening within the confines